Okay, we're going to solve the next few problems using the square root method. The square root method is used when you have no linear term. So let me show that to you over here. So here we have 2x squared. That's a quadratic term. And then the next term, plus 2, that's a constant term. And then the next term in the equation is 4, and that's a constant term. So when you have no bx, let me come back here. So when you have ax squared plus c equals 0, there's no bx term. When that happens, you can use the square root method. So let's get to it. Here we have x squared equals 49. I have x squared and I have 49. I have no linear term. I can solve using the square root method. So what I'm going to do is make my pencil a little bit thicker there. I'm going to simply square root both sides. And when I square root both sides, I have to plus or minus. So whenever I'm dealing with a variable, when square rooting both sides with a variable, we must plus or minus, must do plus or minus. So here we go. So I'm going to square root both sides, plus or minus. I always say that. Square root both sides, plus or minus. It always follows my square root both sides, plus or minus. And then I know not to forget that plus or minus. The square root of 49 is 7. So my two answers are -7 and +7. So again, I have two answers, but one's positive, one's negative. Okay, the next example, 2x squared equals 4. What I like about this problem is that x squared has a coefficient. So you're going to divide out the coefficient. Divide out the coefficient of x squared. So I'm going to take both sides and divide by 2. That's going to leave me with x squared equals 2. Now I'm ready to square root both sides. When I square root both sides, I get a plus or minus, and the square root of 2 is going to remain the square root of 2 since it's not a perfect radicand within that radical. So this is an irrational number, so we're just going to list it negative square root of 2 and positive square root of 2. And I'm not picky about which one comes first. However, some instructors will prefer that you write them in order from least to greatest. Okay, here's one that you can try to solve if you'd like, or you can follow along with me. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides because we have no linear term. We get 2x squared equals 2. We'll divide both sides by 2, and we get x squared equals 1. We square root both sides, and we get that plus or minus. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 1 is 1. So I have two answers, -1 and +1. And there is a reason why I'm writing them out separately, just so that I can get that in my mind that plus or minus 1 is really two different answers. And our last problem here, sometimes they'll take a binomial and square it. This you can also solve using our square root method. So we just have to undo that square. So I'm going to do that by square rooting both sides. And when I square root both sides, I get the plus or minus. So I'll have y minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 4 is 2. So that's two different equations. I have y minus 3 equals -2 and y minus 3 equals +2. When I add 3, I get y equals 1, and when I add 3 on the right side, I get y equals 5. two answers, y equals 1 and y equals 5.